What's your success mantra?
The end kadan pani say kidapade. This is not mine. So these are the advantages you'll have as a woman in India. You won't get it anywhere else. Again, all women are not equal, no? And artificial intelligence are going to take away jobs. I think you should really look at scope for collaboration with other professions because many fields are becoming multidisciplinary. I'm architect Vennila. I have this company called Archi Studio, and we primarily have master planning and institutional projects.
Okay. Why did you choose architecture?
See, I liked math, right, and science, and I was also into art. And my aunt had a diploma in architecture, so I've seen her building models, drafting at home. So I was very interested in architecture even early on, around 7th standard. So I was planning to get into this and eventually I chose this over medicine and engineering.
Okay. Your undergraduate education?
I studied at School of Architecture and Planning. I started the BR program in 1992. It's a 5-year program, so 92, 97. And SAP is a very, I think to this day it remains a very open learning environment. You have a lot of support from faculty. Faculty are always accessible, very informed, extremely supportive of student aspirations, right? And you also have a good peer group, right? We have a well-stocked library. We had the best librarian, architecture librarian in the whole world. So it was really nice. And we had senior professors teaching us right from first year. We had Professor Ravi teaching us history. We had Rajendran sir and Rajshekharan sir who taught us basic design and sketching. I never went for sketching classes even for our architectural entrance examination.
Had entrance exam?
We had entrance examination. So they used to take engineering marks plus +2 marks plus BArch entrance marks, right? So that was done out of my own interest. But once I entered SAP, Rajshekharan sir taught us watercoloring, sketching and all very well. And right from second semester, we again had very senior teachers. We had Rani ma'am teaching us, Sita ma'am, we had Uma ma'am, and we had Monsing sir, we had the Dean Harris sir. All these people were teaching us even UG subjects. We had Srivatsan sir for the final year studio. It's an excellent environment and many projects. We had NASA, you travel, you learn, you can run projects. And SAP was never gendered, at least for me. Okay, so it was very good. Even thesis. So they'll really for my thesis committee, I had Dr. Sachi, architect Suresh Kupaswamy, and we had Ravi sir and Harris sir, and my guide was Rani ma'am. It was a very nice project. You know, they will never prevent you from taking something as being controversial, and they will just do some course correction. It was a very nice experience to study in SAP, and SAP also gives you a lot of contacts. You meet many people and that kind of enriches your experience.
What was your thesis topic, ma'am?
It was revitalization of a capital zone in Chandigarh.
Okay.
So I based it on my urban design studio where we looked at placemaking. And the idea was the capital zone was supposed to be the fulcrum of Chandigarh, right, with all those magnificent architectural artifacts, but it's cut off from the public because it's only administrative and also because of security issues. Okay, and then we saw when we visited Chandigarh as students during tour, we found that this part was deserted, but rock garden was just brimming with life. So the idea was to actually come up with a complex which will reflect and will support public life in that zone. And it was also an attempt to look at the kind of urban scapes of India as compared to Chandigarh, not in terms of thematic environments, but just in terms of spatiality and all that.
Okay. About your masters, like why did you choose urban planning?
Urban design. So it was again the interest which came from my internship and which kind of evolved through the urban design studio and thesis, right? Because urban design is inherently political, right? And there is a socio-cultural angle as well. And so I was very keen on doing urban design. I applied only for urban design.
Okay.
And I eventually chose the University of Texas at Austin, which had a very strong urban design program.
Is there any difference that you have observed in the way of teaching from Indian context to a foreign university?
So to start with, see, you don't, the whole peer group is different, right? I worked with Sheila Shri Prakash ma'am for a couple of years, just for 2 years before I went for my master's. Everybody else in my class had 10 years experience, right? They had already taught in Germany. There are people who are working in China for many years, 12 years, right? And this was the M.Arch group. So there are people who are specializing in urban design, sustainable design and advanced architecture. In addition, they'll have these vertical studios, right? So vertical studios will also have people from their first professional M.Arch, right? So you get to work with a lot of people, all men for the first, excepting for one other person from from India.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was very tough because first of all, the seminars involved extensive reading, which we were already taught to do at SAP, right? But then you had to write these papers and locate your point of view, right? That was there. Second, the studio again. I went there for urban design, okay? And at that point in my life, I used to be very opinionated, right? And so they had an experiment where everybody was pooled into a general studio. Okay, I later learned that was a landscape urbanism studio,
Okay.
which is of a lot of value. Okay, I was young then, so I used to constantly fight with the professor. So, you know, why should I do this? I came here to do urban design. Now I can see the value that I can even show you the project. The project didn't turn out badly at all, but I was very reluctant to do it. Like, I came here to do urban design, you asked me to do this, and they also made us climb one hill, right? And with somebody with asthma, no, it's very difficult to climb the hill. The only other woman in the group was a trekker, right? And then they take us all over Europe and show us other hills that were transformed, right? But you come back, then later you see how that adds to the process. Just even arguing with the teacher, see, that was possible at SAP itself, right? So it was even a larger field to engage there. And more than that, see, I think your academic part is one, life skills that you gain by living abroad is completely different because you get to work with people from different cultures. So that's the first time you even learn about work-life balance, right? Here, I mean, we had this huge army, family army supporting you. Then you end up doing everything yourself. My roommates were so supportive, all through. See, because typically engineering people will not understand architecture, right? They will think architecture is just painting and sketching, and then they find somebody who's spending these long hours in school and it's so rigorous. My roommates were extremely supportive all through that period. So it was good. And even the assistantship I had was not in architecture. Okay, it was in accessible web design, my research assistantship. So there again, you learn to work with other people. So I would see it as two things, the academic skills and the theorizing and the design skills and the collaborative skills that you learn from architecture school versus all these soft skills, how to work with the team, how to work in an office. It was very rigorous, 20 hours per week. I had a job which paid a huge assistantship amount, you know, big stipend and in-state tuition, right? Typically architecture you don't get funding the first semester. See, all of this was possible, but I also had to balance 20 hours working and 20 hours, you know, in studio when everybody else in my class was so experienced, were only doing that. So it was very tough. Okay, but there everybody supports your learning. So in that way it was almost the same at SAP. SAP also, classmates, collaboration, all that worked well. There it's like you're learning from some teaching assistant and an assistant professor within your studio itself.
How about your internship experience, ma'am?
So I did my internship in two places over 6 months. I worked with Sheila Shri Prakash ma'am at Shilpa Associates for most of it, And then the last 1.5 months I worked with Academician Associates in Bombay. And it was a wonderful experience because ma'am gave us a lot of space. She will even give competition projects, design work, and she also gave me detailing. After a point she said you should also learn detailing, right? And I also got to interact with my SAP seniors at Shilpa, and that gave some insights into what will happen in the next semesters, the 8th and 9th semesters when you go back to college, right? So that was very nice. And you also learn about all these other people supporting design work, that there is a big, there's a standardized office team which is looking at the business end, engineering team, right, the site team, right? So the way that office is very cohesive, so I could interact with all these people, and I'm still in touch with most of them.
You've been to the site also during this
Yes,
internship?
yes. She will take us to sites, she will discuss design, right?
Okay.
And let us collaborate. And I also worked in Academician Associates for a month. Since I was there only for a month, they said you will learn something. So I learned CAD.
Oh.
This is 1995. So I learned working on MiniCAD.
So Sheila ma'am's office worked with manual drawings?
Manual drawings. Yeah, I have my drawings also I have photographs.
Okay, so that manual drawing you will show in the internship Viva also?
We didn't have Viva.
Okay, so you just get the experience and then
you get the experience. I think it was much better that way. And I think people are also strict then. I think if you just bunk and you don't go to your office, you're not graded or given a certificate.
Okay, the office gives you a certificate?
Office gives you a certificate. Office files a monthly report.
Okay, nice. Yeah. Your experience as towards your first project after you graduate or after you
So I went back to working with Sheila ma'am.
Okay.
I was there for 2 years. So it is almost like an extension of internship work. And again, lot of space to do competitions, to work on master planning projects, and we even worked on some projects which involved structural innovation, green building, like an art gallery, lot of things. It was a wonderful experience. I should thank her for giving me that kind of range.
You work experience in US, so
US there were 2 internships. This is called curricular practical training, CPT, and you're allowed to, they allow certain number of days per year. So I first worked in a land design firm, landscape firm, and that was very nice. We were again working on master plans, and it was in continuance with what we are doing in college. Okay. See, in college in urban design you learn something called about a charrette. As part of the university studio itself, some components will be done for communities, and there we'll have to go talk to the community. These were live projects which are done for City of Austin, but done as part of your studio. Okay. Right? So you get to sit on charrettes where you explain and you facilitate design with communities. So in the internship also we had projects similar to that, but for private developers. So we had to work with the developer, probable buyers and all these other people. So that was good experience. And then when I was as full time after graduation as an intern architect, I worked with Carter Design Associates with Ms. Donna Carter. Okay, she was a Fulbright scholar. She was the first African American registered architect in the state of Texas. Okay. An amazing person, big time intellectual, right? And they had this lovely set of projects and beautiful office, lovely office. You know, it was an old bungalow in downtown. Okay. And I had very senior colleagues working with me, at Lisa and Matt and Abby. And it was again an opportunity to learn a lot. And more importantly, they were working on community-based projects, community-based historic preservation projects and urban design projects. Okay. So in our university, the lab was mostly East Austin. East Austin was the area which had a lot of minorities, and that was the area which was split from the downtown with a highway. Right? So this was just left to flounder while the downtown flourished. Okay, and East Austin had a lot of heritage, African American heritage, Hispanic heritage, and wonderful parks, musical history and all that, right? So in my office, we got to work on those zones. So it is literally a continuation of college projects, and it was intellectually as stimulating and rigorous. So we'll work with communities, we'll work with City of Austin. We also worked on light rail, 2-3 stations. So you really learn to listen to what people say. Okay. Okay, and ma'am also constantly stressed on this. She said eventually if you build something, eventually you go, you leave, somebody else lives there. Okay, and this is very important, especially for communities. You don't want to force a program or a design that doesn't support their aspirations or their needs. And this historic neighborhood project, we worked everything down from master planning till design of public spaces till rehabilitation of some of those historic houses.
Okay.
That was excellent experience. And then we came back to India.
Okay. So when did you handle your first project? How did you get your first project to work alone?
On my own.
Yeah.
So when I came back, I was teaching full time in School of Architecture and Planning, and then I started working on these school buildings for Aid India at two sites. One was Vembaka, the other one was at Parameswaramangalam near Kuvatur on ECR. So we were working with very disadvantaged communities, and we were working on primary school. And that was excellent experience. Eureka School went on to win Design Share prize, and that gave a lot of boost when I quit SAP. We got the prize after I quit SAP.
Okay.
And it was also learning. See, because I was teaching full time, and big load there also, workload. You know, sometimes two studios, sometimes one studio, 4 courses, because I was teaching M.Arch and B.Arch.
Okay.
And I could learn so much, you know, because again you get back to working with your college, with your former professors, and you learn. As you said during our chat before this, you learn a lot more when you're teaching. So excellent. So along with that, I was working on these schools. Around the same time, we won the National Cyclone Center Design Competition, which was hosted by Gandhigram University. So Dr. Karunakaran specifically asked me to participate because he's seen my interest, and he was very keen that we participate. There we won the joint first prize. So these two things were very important, winning 2 competitions at that point. And that gave a lot of boost. Many of our future projects came from these two.
Okay.
That's why competitions are very important. Now I do not have the luxury to do competitions. I have an office, full-time office, people to pay, and I also have my work-life balance and my teaching. So I don't try to take up too much. So that time I just started out and it was easy, you know, whatever small things that I will show you a brochure. Even the small things I did in the office, right, will immediately update on the website, make a brochure. Okay. Last 10 years we just gone without documentation. I think after 2012 I haven't even published. And for most of our projects we have all the documentation from the site prior to design. We even have post occupancy analysis. Everything is documented. I think eventually at some point we'll publish.
But please publish, ma'am, because I think that goes to a lot of people. We have a lot of books that talks about what happens with Western countries or anywhere, but we really don't know what's happening inside our town. There's something called as contextual, which we are not talking about. We're talking about vernacular, and for that also we are reading examples from 100-year-old building or even before that, but we are not studying actually what is happening right now, because the climate has changed. There's a lot of external factors that cater into a building, but we are not looking at it as a paper or things like that. So please. Okay. And about this women and children's hospital revitalization.
Okay, so this project is very close to my heart, you know, because I've been feminist I think from 6 years or 7 years, thanks to my older sister. These were maternity hospitals which were run by the Family Welfare Department in Corporation of Chennai. We worked with the Department of Family Welfare. We were invited by the Commissioner and Additional Commissioner of Corporation, and we were asked to look at the feasibility study of improving these maternity hospitals run by Family Welfare in 10 different locations. Initially 10 different locations. So we kind of went with we didn't know, you know, what is there in the hospitals, and then we started exploring the hospitals. You know, some are like labyrinths, some were neat, most of them were very well maintained. Okay, then you started talking to the doctors, right, and the other employees. So family welfare was a department entirely run by women. Okay, I met Dr. Vijaya, Dr. Charumati, Dr. Sheila, just to name a few doctors, so many doctors. And we met professionals, health professionals at different levels also, right? All these family welfare advisors, right? The officers working on child welfare, all these multiple levels. So we started with one hospital in Saidapet, right? And you don't realize that these people, they cater to a vast network. Okay, and it starts with the women and children who are the most vulnerable in Chennai. In general, women and children will be most vulnerable, right, in terms of health access. And these are people who come from really low income neighborhoods. Okay, and these hospitals, they were patronized not just by these people but even by middle class. So commissioner at that point said only if we rehabilitate these, middle class will continue to use the hospitals, and that will go a long way in ensuring delivery, quality delivery even after many years. Okay, these are the best set of professionals, medical professionals I'd ever met, right? So we went and saw, and then you hear about their deliveries, some 16,000, 17,000 deliveries, so many. You know, Tamil Nadu has one of the best health frameworks in all of India, right? The infrastructure is just amazing, and the infrastructure is people, right? And it was very motivating to work with these doctors and other health professionals and the additional commissioner very closely, and we also worked with additional commissioner works.
Okay.
So what we did was, see, if you demolish and rebuild, then your whole network, right, from your immunization network, right, and your health information dissemination network goes for a toss, right? So for each hospital, we designed a template. We did minimal, optimal, ideal. Some were complete reconstruction, some were partial reconstruction, some was just internal retrofitting. And the way we went about doing it is, first we wanted to understand process, just like urban design. Urban design, as I said, it's about understanding people, understanding programs, understanding people flow, understanding program flow, understanding how other infrastructure, service infrastructure comes in, plugs into all of this, and of course place making. You want to create a place for people. You have to react to that aspiration. And of course green building, right? Whatever you build has to be sustainable, should be low maintenance, okay, OPEX, and you have to balance CAPEX, OPEX and all of that, right? So we brought all of these as templates. I'll show it to you end of the interview, right? So first, to understand, like a typical urban design project, we just went and sat down and we mapped their processes and we mapped them onto the spaces. So we saw all the areas where a program flow was not matching space sequence, right? Almost like a space syntax. And with that as the basis, we gave proposals for all of this. Now independently, my office is working on, these templates are 10 years old, right? We're looking at updating these templates. We're not building these hospitals anymore. I stopped working for them like around 2015-16. There's too much pressure in terms of project delivery, cash flow, getting the fees back, all that became an issue. But we are actually trying to automate this and actually create templates which can be used by other people. And even now the templates that we created, whichever architect, I was talking to the engineers, they said whatever we gave is now taken as a reference and used. So we had design charrettes with the doctors.
Your opinion on work-life balance, how do you manage?
Everyone has to manage. I said first I learnt about it in grad school, right? And then you think you're super cool, you manage all that, then you have a child. With a very nurturing and supportive partner, it is still extremely difficult, right? To start with, you can't do competitions anymore. I had to stop working at 6, right? And I think for the first 3-4 years, at least till I felt very sick, I was trying to do all of this. Actually, we scaled up work. So I had one project, and then while I was pregnant with her, I got the other hospitals. After she was born, I got the Kendriya Vidyalaya and IIT. It was a competition again. Then Vanavaani competition we won. Then we also won some master planning competition. A lot of these things were just running, and I was also this earth mother, you know, no bottle. A lot of pediatric. No, I think it is advisable. And no diaper. Okay. Everything, you know, ground at home and fed. So all this is very good for the child. Okay, but there's also toll on you and everybody else around you. Yeah. So I immediately didn't scale down work. I was doing this, I was doing this, I was doing all of it. And because I had my own practice, there was a lot of flexibility with the child. At that time, for many years, I had my office as part of my house. Right? We had a nanny to take care of her, but I will supervise her. And there are always architects in the office. Okay, and my daughter is a very reasonable child. As I said, very extremely supportive, nurturing husband. So if you do all these projects, you make no money initially. Yeah. So all these institutional projects, but the institutional projects also they also give you a lot of that initial surge. It was possible only because of his support. So he has to be present to take care of the child. Yeah. Right. Keep in all the systems and also financial support. So work-life balance was like that. So what happens? Finally, you crash at some point, and then you realize you eventually you lose that time. So there was an issue. So then I think it was a good time to kind of audit what has happened earlier. Around 2012, 2014, I was quite sick for a while. Lost a lot of weight, right? And very stressful projects. So what I did was I completed all the architectural projects that I had in 2014, and then for a year I only did feasibility and master planning. Okay. Right? Then kind of came back to architectural projects. We worked on IIT Tirupati, the first Chadalavada campus, 60,000 square feet, one existing building had to be retrofitted within a very short period of time. And that and all the previous projects, because many of these are institutional projects, healthcare projects, they run over time. I finished. And after that I balanced out. So even in terms of projects, we don't take all that size. Stopped almost, probably once in 2-3 years we participate in a competition. Otherwise because competitions do take up a lot of time. Okay, there is stress, right? But your regular projects, even if they are large scale, you already have a schedule, right? If you plan, you'll manage. I also have a very good team supporting me at work and at home. Right? Yeah. So these are the advantages you'll have as a woman in India. You won't get it anywhere else.
Yeah. And about this Vanavaani School, what is it about?
So Vanavaani and KV, so we again extended the ideas developed in KV IIT. We worked on the primary school for Kendriya Vidyalaya IIT, and we worked on Vanavaani School. They're very, very supportive of innovation, and it's also nice because they also look at logic. See, this is actually huge luck because my clients, they look at logic, they are extremely intelligent, they are very reasonable, they support innovation. You don't get it every day. Yeah. And whether it was, and many of these projects are built by CPWD. Okay. They have a highly organized framework, And all my initial projects, I only did the architectural design. I didn't even know that it was bliss. Okay. Structural design, servicing, everything was handled by a corporation of Chennai or by CPWD. Okay. So what happens is I will get those drawings and incorporate in our drawings as layers, but you don't have to deal with the consultant, right? You kind of work with them. You work with those in-house people. Corporation Shankarvelu sir was there and Jay Shankar sir. I mean, they used to complain because you were always changing design. See, we are used to iterating a lot at design stage. I believe in that. I believe in sitting with the client many times just to understand. The first 2-3 months when the project starts, you should just iterate and press it as much as possible. Okay, freeze the design, detail it to a T, specify, get your BOQ in place, and make sure there are no changes, no additional items in drawing or in execution. Okay. Right? And CPW again, I got to work with Mr. Manika Vasagam. I worked with senior consultant Mr. Soundarajan. So you learn so much about how things are executed at site, how our service is plugged in. Okay. Right? So it was wonderful experience. And in these schools, we did look at design for learning. How do you actually design for a child space, but also how you design for the school's growth and modularity. Okay. And these are large scale. Okay. And so we learn about many of these issues, and you also work with large teams. And we also go to, even for the hospitals, we done full energy simulation. So even for these schools, we done the energy simulation. And as I said, I have post-occupancy analysis of all of these buildings. Everything piled in to be published at some point.
Okay, in college we actually ask for a concept to every student and every project. Do we really work with concepts in the site, like for a smaller project? Or
You do, no? You will have to see what is important for that project, right? What is important for you with respect to that project and that client and that site, and you react. So you don't start with an a priori idea. You know how these college students do, poo shape design, shape design. Illa. So you don't force your program into some preconceived form, but you'll have to really see how these different notions of the site context, the program, or program modularity, program flexibility, and ultimately it has to become a place for people. How all of these come together as layers, and you have to iterate. You'll have to see how this informs that, that informs this. So if architects don't learn to do this, there are apps to do this already. Templates.
Please share about your challenges in the field as a women architect.
So there are two different things. One is being a woman, second is being an architect in any large construction team, especially government work, because you know it's very well known how they treat architects' drawings. So as a women architect, see, I think we should look at it in perspective. I think it's much easier than how it was for the previous generations, and in a state like Tamil Nadu, you do meet many people who might not explicitly state that they support women. I will call these people feminists in practice. They are not theorizing or making these big garikais or whatever, but they support you when it is required. But again, all women are not equal, no? Okay, so people with certain social privilege, we have some agency, right, to understand, to tackle issues or to even escalate. So when you talk about women in architecture, it is to, so feminism is equality for everybody, right? You will have to see how do you actually get this agency for everybody, all women and even some men, no? Right? I'm sure it's tough for men from rural backgrounds or other economically or socially disadvantaged backgrounds. Okay, that is one part. So what I would request women students, this I stress in all my classes, that you know, don't take it easily. Talk to people. I mean, there are people in that 50 to 55 to 60 or older women architects, right? Talk to them, see what they went through. See, they made our life so much easier, right? And never take this for granted. Okay, so your freedom and this agency has come through because so many people have persevered, right? So you'll have to first start talking about how others get this agency. Women of all backgrounds, how do you get this agency? Okay, and also extend it to other women in constructions, not just architects. Okay, major exploitation only happens in construction teams, right? To this day, women laborers are not paid on par with the men, right? Though the law dictates equal pay, it is never administered. Okay, so there are a lot of issues, so much of distance to cover.
What is your success mantra?
There is no success mantra. I mean, how do you define success? Okay, I think to grow, you have to constantly learn and update. And another thing I've learned is this Tamil saying, "En kadan pani seithu kidappade." Lot of times, it might be extremely difficult to function at your best. You still have to show up and deliver.
What's your advices to the younger architects?
Okay, I think as I said, you should always be open to change. We should learn, And then there is a lot of scope which comes with this supposedly this age of disruption. They are saying AI, automation and artificial intelligence are going to take away jobs. So all these ages of disruption also come with new opportunities, right? And I think what I find is very positive about millennials and post millennials, they're ready to collaborate. I think you should really look at scope for collaboration with other professions, because many fields are becoming multidisciplinary, right? And also to use architecture as a starting point and to go into other startups related to architecture. I think one thing will be to look at our vertical and really look at all the processes in architecture and see which of these can become separate verticals, right? And whether these can be starting points for collaboration with other professionals instead of just complaining about change and growth.